The Girl Who Chased Away Sorrow. The Diary of Sarah Nita, a Navajo Girl. New Mexico, 1864. Written by Anne Turner. Who needs to be civilized? As we march over the snow, Grandfather turns to look over his shoulder. How will the old ones journey in this weather? He seems to forget that he is old too. The Nakai comes riding up on his spotted horse, snow spurting from the hooves. He calls out, "Look how many of your people we've captured. We will civilize you, teach you to farm. All of you!" He sweeps his arm wide, then gallops off to join the soldiers. Civilize, Grandfather mutters. He tells the behind of that horse that the Dene were here long before the white people, that we know how to care for the earth, the forest, the animals, and the sweet water. It is the white man who needs to be civilized, he exclaims. Sani's father waves one arm angrily, saying, "We should teach them." And others call out, agreeing with him. I wish evil on the white men. Father always said that we must live in harmony with our world, with the red buttes, the mesas, sagebrush, male and female rains, snow in the winter, antelope, deer, the wild turkey, and our people. That is the Navajo way, he would tell me, his face solemn to show that this was important. I have a small talk with my father inside as we march through the snow, cold seeping through the soles of my moccasins. How can I be in harmony with white people? How can I be in harmony when my stomach feels sick from their food and my face is freezing? But there is no answer. I cannot even see my father's face inside, though it has only been a little over 3 moons since my family was captured. Father always told me I must never wish for evil to come on anyone. I knew, he knew, that he meant witches or skinwalkers. No one wanted to say that terrible word. But I am so angry now that I want to call down evil on these blue soldiers for what they are doing to us. In a small, hard voice I wish, let them all die of a horrible sickness. Let their teeth fall out and their insides turn to black water. But somehow those dark thoughts make me feel sick inside, as if I had eaten uncooked flour. It does not make me feel happy to think of those soldiers slipping off their horses and dying on the way. If I were a singer, like my grandfather who died 2 summers ago, I would make up a song, a prayer to bring our family together. Let us walk our earth again. Let us be in the shadow of our hogan. Let us sit by the fire together. Then I feel peaceful, not full of dark thoughts blowing like a fierce and terrible wind. Will they make slaves of us? What will happen to us when we get to this fort by the river? What if the Nakai is lying to us? Maybe they will make slaves of us there. Aunt talks to me on the march about what it is like to be a slave. She is worried too. She remembers little of being a slave to the New Mexicans, but her mother told her you always have to do what someone else tells you. You must prepare your master's food, she says, and make beds, sweep houses, fetch water, chop wood, water their horses, and take care of their babies. Thrusting out 10 fingers, Aunt says, I could fill each of these with something the master tells you to do, and they make up more things if they see you stopping. Everyone in our group has heard her, and our words buzz back and forth like angry bees. High Jumper comes close for a moment, saying that he will never be a slave to a white man, he will run away first. Grandfather hears and asks how his grandson will survive on his own. What will he eat? High Jumper slows to match his stride with grandfather. We Dene can always find food. Sani plucks my right sleeve and asks shyly if I think we will be slaves at the fort. I shake my head. Who can know the minds of the Bilagana? The Nakai does not help us. We march all day through the falling snow, only resting for a short time to let our animals drink from a stream and eat some dried grass. After chewing on hard bread and drinking some water, we wrap ourselves tightly in our blankets and go on. Soon the wind blows harder, colder, and grandmother pulls the blanket around her face. Grandfather walks in front of Aunt to shield her and Starlight. I can hear the baby whimpering. Slower, slower we go as the snow comes down harder. Kaiba does not say one word, but she is biting her lips so hard the blood comes. Sani's grandmother and grandfather are falling behind, feet barely moving. My friend is trying to help, but Desba slips to the ground like a heap of rags. Suddenly, Aunt marches forward to where the Nakai rides a spotted horse. I see her speaking to him. I see him waving his hand downward. When Aunt returns, she's so angry her cheeks glitter with tears. They can do nothing for the old ones, he said. Either they keep up, or they will be left to die. Chinditago, grandmother and grandfather say together. And so it is my elders who support Sani's grandmother, helping her step by step until the light goes and we can huddle by fires to get warm. What will happen to her? What if she isn't strong enough to go on tomorrow? We keep Desba warm. That night, grandfather brings Desba into our blanket shelter, putting her between me and Kaiba. Keep her warm, my granddaughters, he says, spreading a blanket over us. We are crowded together, grandfather, grandmother, aunt, and Starlight, and Kaiba and me, with our dog on our feet. Between us, Desba's body feels like bird bones, thin and brittle. I do not think that our warmth will be enough. Kaiba asks for a story. The next day the snow stops, and a pale sun shines. This morning, Sani walks beside me, with sister on my right. High Jumper is helping Desba to walk, holding one arm while my grandfather holds the other. Desba does not talk. Her thin face looks pale and weary. I wish that we had enough blankets for all of them. It isn't fair that Sani has to sleep out in the open with just one blanket for cover. But we do not have extras to share, and there is not enough room in our small shelters for her family too. Kaiba tugs on my hand, reminding me of the time I told a story to cheer up father, to change his downward turned mouth. Remember? You called yourself the girl who chased away sorrow. Sani asks about that story, but I shake my head. I cannot tell it today. It will make me too sad to remember when we all lived together in my mother's hogan, with the warm fire burning and mutton stew bubbling in the pot. Instead of warmth and good smells, I'm surrounded by the sounds of shuffling feet, crying babies, and coughing. Soldiers keep close watch on us, riding up and down our line as the wagons follow at the rear. I hope there is plenty of food in them. If you tell us a story, sister, pleads Kaiba, it will help us to forget the cold, the soldiers, and this marching. The words float up. I don't answer right away. If I am quiet, out of the silence words sometimes rise up like sparks from a fire, Once, I begin, waiting for the words. Kaiba gives a little hop beside me. Once there was a family of prairie dogs who lived in the sandy soil. More words come from inside, and pictures too. I am imagining how we all lived together in our hogan, and how we were like prairie dogs in their safe burrow. They had everything they wanted. Sunlight in the morning, moonlight at night, sweet grasses outside their burrow, a mother and father, and 5 brothers and sisters to play with. Every day, smallest one poked her head above the entrance and looked about. "Any hawks?" she asked herself, eyeing the blue sky. "Any coyotes to crunch me in their teeth?" he asked. "Any sharp-fanged rattlesnakes to eat me up?" Just ahead of us, Grandmother looks over her shoulder and smiles at me. Of course, after smallest one asked herself all those questions, she darted back into her burrow. The world was too frightening, too scary. Her brothers and sisters teased her. "Smallest one is a baby, a baby. She's afraid of her own shadow." Every day, the smallest prairie dog declared that this day she would be brave and finally leave the burrow. But she did not leave the safe dark of their home. The sun shone, birds flew, the moon shed its light over the red land, and she missed it all. As I talked, the cold, snowy land fell away. The sounds of our people and the mounted soldiers disappeared. The others told her about the golden ball that rolled from one part of the sky to the other each day. She only saw shadows in the burrow. The others told her about the green leaves fluttering in the wind, and the cactus with beautiful yellow blooms. She only heard the sound of grasses rustling. And so it would have gone on forever, except that one day clouds covered the sky, thunder boomed, and the rain began to fall. It ran down the tunnels, collected at the bottom, and water began to rise inside the burrow. "Out, out, everyone out!" shouted smallest one's father. Everyone raced for the entrance, popping out into the strong rain. All except the littlest prairie dog. But water rushed into the tunnels. There was less and less air to breathe, and soon smallest one had to decide. Would she drown in their burrow, or leave it for the outside world? She took a deep breath, said a prayer to the holy people to protect her, and clawed her way to the entrance. As the rain stunned her eyes, thunder boomed overhead. She almost ducked back inside, except the rising water was soaking her tail by now. So with one big leap she jumped out of the burrow and looked around. Where were her brothers and sisters? Where were her mother and father? She looked and looked, but could see nothing in the driving rain and darkness. Nearby was a thorny shape with golden blooms that glowed when the lightning flashed. It looked safe to smallest one, and she ran for it. The rain soaked her fur right to her skin. Shivering, she ducked into the shelter of the cactus and was surprised to hear voices. "Here she is! She's safe! She's safe!" came the voices of her family. How happy she was to see them! How happy they were to see her! She was safe, but more than that, she had learned to leave her burrow. And when the rain stopped and the water sank into the dry ground, she stayed outside, nibbling on the grasses and drinking from the puddles. She always was the first to dive for the burrow at the cry of a hawk. She always was the first to hide when they heard a coyote howl. Still, every day, she crept outside to eat, to watch the great sun roll overhead, and to smell the sweet air after a rain. I look up, to see that I am surrounded by people, not just Sani, sister, partridge girl, grandfather, and grandmother, and their family, but many others. "Thank you for the story," they call out. And just then, the soldiers blow their horns to stop the march so we can eat hard bread and drink water. As we slow down, High Jumper smiles at me, the scowl gone from his face. Today, I chased away sorrow. For a time. My terrible dream. At night I dream I am standing at the door to our hogan with my arms out. A black wind blows, bringing rain and lightning. I am screaming something into the wind, but no one hears. A body flies by in the wind, all its white bones shining. I wake myself up screaming, and everyone else is awake too, asking what is wrong. It is time to get up, to make a fire, to try to get warm for another day of marching. But I start to walk this day with a terrible heaviness in my chest. The first death. At least it is not snowing when we pack up our blankets, gather our animals together, and set off once again. But the cold seeps under our blankets through the soles of our moccasins, and I see grandmother stumbling once or twice over the clumps of dried grass. High Jumper hurries to help her, and that leaves Sani and her father trying to help Desba move forward. Soon they fall behind, and though we try to help them along, we are too heavily loaded. The last time I see them, there are two people standing still with a crumpled dark shape between them. One person bends over, straightens, and moves forward again. I hear my friend's mourning wail on the wind. No soldier stops to help. When Sani joins us, she speaks through her tears. She is dead. All of a sudden, we had to leave her. I hate that my dream came true, and I hate that Desba will not sleep beside me tonight. This is the first death, and grandfather says there will be many more. Others slip away. Desba is not the only one to die this day. I see two elders stumbling and falling behind. A boy with a terrible cough collapses on the ground. I am afraid to look at them, but I have to count them. I have to remember. People are muttering around me. They're not even human beings. At night, when we camp, we put ashes on our cheeks for the dead, and I comfort Sani. But it doesn't feel like a time of mourning. It feels like a time of anger. Some young men are clustered together around one fire, talking among themselves. Excitedly, High Jumper comes back to our fire and crouches beside me. Those men and some boys are going to run away tonight, Nita. I ask if he's going. He doesn't say yes or no, but I can feel his restlessness like a sharp smell on the wind. When he enters his family's blanket tent soon after, I almost go up to Uncle to say, "Your son might run away. Talk to him." But I can't tell my friend's secret. So I lie down, silently, pulling the sheepskin up to my chin. When I wake in the morning, will he be gone? Sani comes with us. In the morning, Sani pushes aside our blanket door and cries, "They're gone, Nita. My father and brothers ran away with the others." Holding my friend's hand, I run to Uncle's tent to see if High Jumper is still there. He is outside by their fire, feeding it dry sticks. "So you stayed," I whisper to him, and he smiles quickly, telling me he was afraid to leave his grandparents. Wrapping a gray blanket tightly around himself, grandfather goes to talk with some other men to find out what's happened. Grandmother cooks flatbread for us over Uncle's fire. She is always careful to save some of our food from the night before, not like some families who eat all their food at once. When Sani collapses by the fire, grandmother touches her shoulder. "You must share our blanket tent at night. Bring your mother and grandfather too. Somehow we will make room." The first thing that my aunt, Mexican woman, does is make Sunny sit on the rug in our tent. Taking out her stiff grass brush, she brushes my friend's hair until tears come to Sunny's eyes. Aunt gives her a length of red wool to bind around her hair. Even though we are captives, we are still the people, Aunt says firmly. We must stay clean, keep our faces washed, pray to the holy people, and keep living the way we were meant to. Sunny nods at Aunt's words. All day she walks with us, helping with the animals and gathering firewood at night. I'm sad for her, but glad that now I have another sister. We find the monster's blood. We march for days and days through snow, over snow, sometimes finding water, sometimes not. We reach the country where we walk between tall red buttes speckled with green junipers, where the wind howls at our backs. One day Grandfather takes a stick and pokes through the snow, scattering it. I thought it was here. This is where Monster Slayer killed the evil giant. There's its dried blood on the ground. We all come to look, kneeling by Grandfather and poking fingers through the snow. Hard black mounds cover the soil, and we draw our fingers back quickly. This is something from the long ago time, to be spoken about, but not touched. But all day our moccasins hit the hard, uneven rock beneath, and by nighttime Kaiba is limping badly. She tells me she twisted her ankle on it, refusing to use the words monster's blood. Grandmother steeps some herbs in hot water that night, soaking a rag in it and wrapping it around Sister's ankle. It seems to help, and Kaiba finally sleeps beside me, with Sunny at my back. Silvercoat curls on our feet, helping to keep us warm. My friend's grandfather and mother are weds beside grandmother. But I lie awake for a time, listening to the soldiers marching around camp, listening to their strange, harsh words that sound like pebbles hitting a bowl. How will my sister walk tomorrow? Micah Eyes helps. All morning, Kaiba limps beside me. I hold one arm while High Jumper holds the other, but we are falling behind, and I am afraid. I think that death waits at the end of the line. Trying to hurry, biting her lip, Kaiba says, I can't keep up. It hurts too much. And she sits down in the snow. No, sister, you can't fall behind. You can't. Then High Jumper puts her on his back and goes forward, a step at a time. But he is tired too, his mouth tight with the effort of holding Kaiba. A horse's hooves pound beside me. I crouch, terrified, as the horse comes to a stop. Micah Eyes swings down from his mount, kneeling beside Kaiba. She points to her ankle, showing him how red and swollen it is under the bandage. Making a clicking sound with his teeth, he gently lifts Kaiba onto his horse. As High Jumper steps forward, he waves his hand at him and smiles. No hurt. No hurt, he tells us. But the Nakai is not here to help us understand. Besides, what can the two of us do against a mounted soldier? On top of the horse, Kaiba calls out that she will be all right. The soldier swings up behind her, putting one arm around her middle and using the other to hold the reins. They ride away from us. High Jumper is puzzled and confused. Is that soldier just being kind? How could that be? Kaiba rides with Micah Eyes. There is no snow today. I can lift my face to the sharp blue sky and feel no gritty flakes. Grandmother and my two aunts bless the sun for its warmth, and Aunt takes the blanket away from Starlight's face to give her fresh air and sunshine. As we roll up our blankets and tent poles, Micah Eyes leads his horse over to us, signaling to Kaiba to mount. Come, girl, he says. And she knows what he means. Looking over her shoulder and smiling, Kaiba tells us that her soldier taught her some words on the journey yesterday. That strange sound, come, means he wants her to ride with him, and girl is their word for a Dene granddaughter. Grandfather frowns at grandmother, but says nothing. I clench my fists. Now sister is learning their words and is riding with one of them. Kaiba is the only one in our family who looks happy as she holds out a hand to her soldier. Quickly, she swings up, her limp right foot dangling against the horse's side. Then Micah Eyes does something strange. He touches one finger to his hat before urging his horse on. What does that mean? For the rest of the day, my sister is with Micah Eyes, only joining us for food and at nighttime, when grandmother soaks a new bandage in herbs and wraps it around sister's ankle. I am afraid of what she is learning, afraid that that blue soldier will take her away from us. The robbers come. After another day of riding with Micah Eyes, grandmother declares that my sister is better, and she can walk with us again. Sister does not dare disobey her, and sets off with Sani, Partridge Girl, and me. We walk a little slower than usual, so Kaiba will not get too tired. Partridge Girl is happy to have her friend back, and asks if sister will play the string game with her that night. As they are talking, I hear sounds behind, cries and shouting. Hooves thud onto hard earth as men on horseback gallop up to our line. "Hide!" Ed cries. "Hide!" Throwing ourselves to the ground, we pull our blankets over our heads. Hooves thunder close by, and I have to look. One man races up to us so close I can see his black mustache blowing and his thick black eyebrows. Holding out one arm, he snatches up a little girl nearby. She cries out, but no soldier goes to help her. Our people try to stop the horse, but he thunders ahead. Another man cuts through our line, grabbing a young boy and throwing him across his horse, as a third man on horseback drives a group of sheep and goats away from the line. Grandmother shouts, "My goats!" Running after the raider, someone is taking great leaping strides, whirling his rope around his head. He is shouting something at them, a terrible word. It is High Jumper, trying to save our animals. But no matter how fast he leaps and runs, he cannot keep up with the men on horseback. Finally he stops, turns, and walks back to us with dragging feet. The raiders gallop away, with their captured animals ahead of them and some children thrown across the necks of their horses. Aunt places one hand on all of us, as if she is counting and making us safe. Grandmother breathes out a prayer, and Uncle stares off at the disappearing animals. "Probably New Mexicans," he tells us, "getting rich from our sorrow. They will sell the children as slaves." Beside me, Sani is trembling, holding on to my arm. But Kaiba and I are not crying. The soldiers do not care if our animals are stolen. They do not care if we are stolen. No one goes after the thieves. No soldier tries to recapture our animals or rescue the children. I smile a special smile at High Jumper, proud that he tried to save our goats. "You ran fast, but the horses were faster." He does not smile back, but just hits his leg with the knotted rope. It almost seems he is trying to hurt himself. He disappears. All night, Kaiba and I sleep with our arms around each other, and in my dreams, I see that man with the dark mustache swooping up the girl onto his horse. Where did he take her? What will happen to her? When sister and I hunt for wood to start a fire at dawn, Uncle asks if we've seen High Jumper. I look for what's left of our animals, thinking my friend is with them, but I do not see him. His mother thinks he is filling her water gourd at the stream, but as we stamp our feet and try to get warm by the fire, he does not come. My neck shivers suddenly, and I am afraid. "I think he ran away," Partridge Girl reminds us of the others who have slipped off during the nights of this terrible march. I remember how he hit his leg with the rope yesterday. He was so angry. "I think he went too," I say, and remind grandfather that High Jumper wanted to leave a long time ago. Then there is no use calling, Grandfather says sadly. One tear traces a path down his weathered cheek, but no others follow. He straightens his shoulders and spits out that if he were younger, he would run away too. He would rather take starvation on the hills with the pinon trees and the junipers than eat the sick food out in the open with no hogan for shelter or comfort. This is not what the holy people wanted for us. Uncle reminds us of the old prophecy that we Navajos are always supposed to stay within sight of our 4 sacred mountains and the 3 rivers. If we cross one river too many, evil luck will come to us. Everyone shakes their heads, murmuring in agreement, and no one notices when I scramble back into our blanket tent and crouch, pressing my hand to my mouth. 7 holes inside. All morning we think about High Jumper, talk about him, wonder where he is and what he is eating. His moccasins, Slim Woman exclaims. They were wearing out. What will happen to... Uncle comforts her, reminding her that their son has 13 summers and is not a child. He will survive, Uncle says. At midday, the soldiers blow under bugles to tell us to stop. All the wagons rumble to a halt, the mules shaking their long ears in the cold. I tell Sani that I feel as if we should be rubbing ashes on our cheeks to mark High Jumper's leaving. Before, I felt there were 6 holes inside me, 1 for each member of my family who is gone. Now there is a 7th. I will never get used to these empty spaces in my chest.